most important message today is be safe, right? Be safe. Your health is what counts here. Follow the evacuation orders. Frequently, we've had great compliance with the evacuation orders, and if we keep that up, we'll minimize further losses.
You can't give me the right to be a human being. I'm fine with that right. Now you can keep me from having that if you've got all the policemen and all the jobs on your side.
Hello friends and fellow human beings, and welcome back for another video. With this one, I'm taking a deep dive into the Oregon Road Fire, as they're calling it here in the Spokane, Washington area. What I want you to pay attention to as I narrate this video is how the fire scorched one side of this little road that used to just be a Jeep trail, with even more grass growing down the middle of it when the fire started. Now, because it's been so heavily traveled by water trucks and fire crews, it actually resembles a fire line. Keep in mind as you watch, it wasn't a very good fire line when the fire started and spread to this area within just a few hours of it starting. As I mentioned in my previous video, Spokane is one of the smallest cities to garner lots of attention from NGOs or non-governmental organizations pushing the smart city agenda. Just a simple search turned up this 2017 article from the Spokesman Review. It says Spokane is one of 10 cities picked to participate in a 2015 year-long program sponsored by Envision America. Because who can be against such a nice-sounding organization as that? I mean, if you don't support it, does that mean you support un-envisioning America? It's kind of like the whole Mayors Against Gun Violence conference from several years back. The implication is, if your mayor didn't attend, well then they must be for gun violence. And who wants to re-elect a mayor that's for gun violence? Anyhow, I digress. According to the article, the Envision America sponsored program's goals were to help American cities become smarter by accelerating the use of innovative technologies, addressing energy, water, waste, and air quality issues. In other words, establishing chosen people and corporations with credentials for being able to manage these things for us in the future, since most people are just grown children doing as they're told by the ruling class and the governments they control rather than think for themselves. I mean, those people during the pandemic that demanded liberties be removed had plenty of letters and awards behind their names, meaning they were more important, and what they said and thought was vastly more important than just your average Joe going to work every day to put food on their tables for their families or whoever. Now, the article also states in 2017, the University District, aka Indoctrination Center of Spokane, installed new smart streetlights that don't just illuminate, but also measure pollution. And that it was one of the first projects in Spokane's 770-acre living laboratory. Now, doesn't that sound exciting? What is it they do in laboratories again? Oh yeah, they run tests on things. I wonder what they might be testing in a 770-acre living laboratory that's right alongside the downtown core of Spokane. I'm going to get much more into the Spokane Smart City initiatives in future videos regarding this fire and the circumstances surrounding it. Now I'm going to start taking that deep dive and showing you just one of the reasons I believe this fire, or at least how they fought it, is tied to the smart city agenda that, make no mistake, is coming for every city, even my quaint little mountain hometown of Bozeman, Montana. So far, there's no real evidence of it being anything other than just a regular old fire, more than likely started by someone doing some careless burning in a rural part of the area surrounding Spokane. Yes, my constitutional conservative friends and followers, there of course is a chance it was started by someone on purpose to burn people out of the rural areas and into cities. Whether it was started on purpose or by lack of care or accident is irrelevant. I'm going to start showing you with this video why I say that. I do believe this fire helps with accomplishing the smart city agenda being embraced by this country and others. I come to this belief based on my own observations on how the fire was fought and stories I've been told from victims of the fire and what they witnessed as well. But for this video, I'm going to be focusing on my observations. The land I'm currently driving through is Washington Department of Natural Resources land. If you'll notice on the left side of the road, all the underbrush, which was mainly grass, is burned. There were very few trees other than what you see standing, mainly just tall, older trees. On the right is a mixture of dry grass and other various bushes amongst the more densely populated trees of all ages and sizes. The other thing about the right and unburned sides of the road is there are various tags with signs like this one indicating this is the edge of a previous timber sale. The timber on the burned side had already been sold by the state and harvested. The timber stand on the right has not been harvested as recently and has many more marketable trees, at least in the coming years. The burned side has mainly ponderosa pines standing, which are not as good for lumber as fir and tamarack that fill in much more of the right side of the road. To get to this plot of land, the fire had to jump a wider, all-dirt road, the one I happen to live off of now. Yet it didn't manage to jump this little Jeep trail through DNR land and burn up possible future income for the state via more timber sales. Now I want to make clear, I don't think any of the firefighters out here fighting the fire in this area are part of any agenda or did what I'm talking about on purpose. Like most people taught by public indoctrination centers known as public schools in this country, they're trained to just stay in their compartmentalized little bubble. They don't question things or stray from what they've been told because they don't have those illustrious credentials and titles I mentioned earlier. They are just told to go here and do this job, and almost all do just that. If they didn't, they wouldn't hold these jobs. They'd be fired and replaced by someone who follows orders. What I witnessed on the initial night of the fire was not any of the firefighters rushing up the road I lived on before the fire jumped it to save any of the structures that were burned up there. Instead, I saw one walking along the road before it jumped, but doing nothing to suppress it or drive to the end of the fire to try to save the structures while the water truck he drove up there sat on the road unused. Then a few hours later, my daughter and I returned to the area to see if the fire had progressed towards our place. We did notice at that time a couple of crews fighting the fire along this Jeep trail. Keep in mind, this was maybe 3 to 4 hours after the start of the fire, so there really were only local and county crews in the area at this point. To my knowledge, though, no one at this point had advanced up the road I live on to save any of the structures up that way. I even asked a sheriff's deputy stationed there, and he said they had no reports from up the road, and as far as he knew, they were concentrating on making sure it didn't advance further into the DNR land. There were no structures in danger from this part of the fire, and wouldn't be for many acres. However, up the road, there were multiple structures very close to the fire as it progressed that direction. Now, I don't have any of those credentials, but I do use and understand logic quite well. To me, as far as the corporation known as Washington State is concerned, they looked to be protecting their revenue sources. The people whose structures burned in this area pay property taxes, so that income is locked in whether the fire burns their property or not. However, if this timberland owned by DNR burns, they can't sell this timber in the future. So it only seems logical to me that the state was concerned about securing its future income rather than the property of the people who it rules over. On the second day of the fire, when I went back to check on things, I happened to see a message that the county was waiting for a bulldozer so they could get it up there and start making fire lines. I immediately called the Pend Oreille County Emergency Services Department and told them I had one already up in that area and either they could use it or I could use it if they told me where to make the fire lines. The operator actually got pretty excited and told me she'd give the fire chief my information and have him contact me. Of course, I got no call back. Now I know all you lovers of the state out there will say, well, there's liability involved by using your dozer, and they can't allow you to put your life at risk by using the dozer yourself. And you'd be right. I'm sure that's exactly why I got no call back regarding the use of my bulldozer. Like an idiot, I waited for a response I never got. I actually thought people working for government would use logic in a circumstance like this. I mean, think about it. Why are only people paid through the extortion fees the state collects allowed to risk anything to save the property of themselves and their neighbors and fellow community members? Why was I not allowed to put my life on the line for my community members if I deemed it necessary and right? The truth is, I can, and I could have. The state just likes it to look like it's the only thing that can protect communities and people. In fact, they insist on having a monopoly in that area. I know another friend who drove down with a water truck and was turned around by the ruling class in the area. Now this is how it fits right into the Smart City Agenda 2030 stuff. Getting people out of rural areas and into nice, controllable, smart cities. The areas that were protected most by the state seem to be state-owned areas that, according to Agenda 2030 plans, will be delegated as natural areas that only the best of slaves, I mean compliant citizens, will be allowed to visit. Over 120 structures were lost in this 11,000-acre fire. I have friends in this area who have informed me over the past few years that protection from forest fires was dropped from their insurance policies, and they couldn't find a new policy with that type of coverage. That seems pretty interesting to me. What about you? If the people that had no coverage for a fire like this can't rebuild, what will they do? It's getting harder and harder for those that ask permission from the ruling class to get that permission to be out in these rural areas. But I'll tell you what, there sure are lots of apartment complexes and 15-minute smart city type construction projects going on all over this country. I guess with no other options, many will resort to moving into the city. What do you think? Is my assessment in this video off, or do you think I'm onto something? If you're not following my channel, make sure you do now so you're notified when I put up my next video on this topic. Plus, you'll get the added benefit of getting notified of my other videos and posts covering topics like foraging, updates on my off-grid homestead, and using logic to show the coercive, forceful, and unethical nature of government and those it employs with money stolen from the people it rules over. As for now, share this video with friends and interact with it to get it up in the algorithms, and I look forward to reading your comments on this subject. Thanks for joining me for this video. If you like my content, share it. It's the best way to support the efforts of this channel and only takes a couple of clicks. Most importantly, stop using big tech platforms and decentralize. Share this from a decentralized and blockchain-based platform to help spread the word about them.